Hey everybody, this week I want us to think about structure and touch on staffing and casting. Now, I had you work on plot lines this last week, and I really enjoyed them. They were great. And now we're going to think about how you take a basic plot line idea and blow it up into an actual structured story, right? So let's think about what we've done so far. We've had an idea, we've worked out part of our production plan, you've done some audience research, and then you get to turn your focus onto the project itself, right? So like I said last week, I asked you to be creative and think of possible plot lines for our TV series project. And this week, we're going to look more closely at story structure. So what is story structure? Well, structure sounds like an obvious word. It's how something is constructed, how it's put together. Often you think of a structure as the foundation, right? Or when I say foundation, I mean like the bones of a house, let's say, or a structure. The skeleton, right, is a structure. So most theories on story structure break structure down into a series of acts or stages that include the situation, what's going on, right? The trigger, what kicks off this story. The challenge, there's almost always an obstacle or a challenge to overcome or defeat. And then there's a reversal, oftentimes in a structure, where someone's fortunes change. There'll be a climax, and then there'll be a resolution, right? So when you think about structure in that way, your book talks about a structure grid. So breaks it down even a little bit more. So in the situation, who are the characters? Where are they in life? What's going on? Think about our TV series project as your example, obviously. The trigger is sometimes often called the initiating or inciting incident. Something changes in the main character's life, and something they have to deal with comes up, setting the plot in motion, right? So there's the challenge. The characters start to deal with a problem or conflict in their lives. They encounter obstacles, and there's often jeopardy, a sense of danger, some kind of loss. Of course, these are all relative terms. Danger can be very high risk, high stakes, life or death, or it can be something more trivial, but there's still that sense. They're still playing with those emotions. And something is still in jeopardy. Something is still, what's the word I'm looking for? Something is still up in the air, right? Something could still happen. There are still consequences. So oftentimes in a story structure, you'll get a reversal. Some new problem occurs, some new challenge comes up, which either reverses the character's first attempts to deal with the problem or challenge. It might also just spin the plot in a different direction, right? Something happens to ratchet up the challenge, the story, and you want to think about that as opposed to focusing on just the initial challenge. Things happen, right? You want to think about stories as being linked by causality. Things happen, people act a certain way, respond a certain way, think a certain way, feel a certain way, causing other things to happen, right? And then, of course, in the climax, your situation reaches a critical point. And oftentimes the climax is regarded as the point in the story where the outcome of the story is established, decided upon, inevitable, right? When your character, something happens in the story, something happens to the character that makes the resolution or a resolution inevitable. And then that's what falls from the climax, the resolution. The story is resolved and finished, at least for that week, right? Now, not all stories are going to follow this format, but the majority of them broadly follow these lines, right? And then woven around the structure, you're going to see the important elements of narrative, right? When we think of narrative, we think of narrative as story, right? And there are elements that go into a narrative. The characters, again, who are the main protagonists? What is their emotional journey? What do they want? What do they need? Themes. What are the underlying messages of the piece, right? What's going on underneath the dialogue? Where does the action happen? That's your setting. Where is your story unfolding? The genre. What convention does it fit in? We talked about genres when you came up with series ideas. And then the plot. The plot is what is actually happening on screen as it's being told to us by the director, by the series maker, right? So these elements are going to be different in every story, obviously, project to project, right? But if you're working on a series, you'll usually have the same sort of tools or toys to play with. Of course, there are an infinite number of different characters, themes, settings, and genres which can be woven around the same basic story structure. If you look in your textbook, the familiar fairy tales of Snow White are used as an example, right? Meaning that the story structure, which we talked about last slide, there's still all these elements, But when you play around with the character, theme, setting, genre, and plot, then you get a quote-unquote new story, right? That's how stories are often based around same basic ideas, just with different details that we would find in a narrative structure like we just talked about. So a good way to think about how structure works in the real world and how we respond to it as human beings is to simply look at movie trailers. So looking at a movie trailer will tell you a lot about the story structure and narrative of the film, even if you've never seen it, right? Because the point of a film trailer, most film trailers, I shouldn't generalize, but I'd say most of them, is obviously to make you want to come and see the film or rent the film or stream the film. So trailers typically convey some of the narrative elements used in the film, right? You're almost always going to get a sense of the central plot or themes in the film, what it's about, what's happening. You get a sense of the characters that are going to be in the film that you're going to meet and spend some time with. And a sense of the genre of the film. What type is it? Is it horror? Is it drama? Is it comedy? Is it sci-fi? What is it? You're going to get a sense of that in a trailer. But trailers are only so long. That's why they call them trailers, right? They're varying lengths, but I'd say most of them are between 90 seconds and 3 minutes, generally. So they have these pivotal moments in the story structure that they cherry pick so they can convey a lot of information about the film in a very short space of time. So 9 times out of 10, a trailer will tell you something about the main character's situation, right? Something about the trigger or inciting incident, and it will give you a taste of the types of challenges the main character is facing, right? So you'll know something about the main character, how they live, where they live, what their life is like, and then you'll see in the trailer the inciting event, and then it'll sort of kick off the plot in the trailer, right? And it's going to give you a taste of what the movie is going to give you. It's going to be action, is it comedy, is it drama, what is it, right? Horror film. Give you a taste of that. Obviously, it's not going to show you the resolution, hopefully, because that's what they want you to come and see. How is this going to work out, right? Sometimes you'll see a trailer, and you don't realize until you've seen the film that they actually did tell you the resolution somehow, but it didn't feel like the resolution in the trailer. So what I want you to do for this week for the assignment is to go to week 4 and participate in the assignment by choosing a movie trailer for a film that you've not seen, right? And identify the story and narrative elements as conveyed by only the trailer. Don't do any research. Just watch the trailer, and I want you to tell me what's the situation, what's generally going on, what's the trigger, what's kicking off this action, what challenges are the characters going to deal with, what's the genre, what are the main who are the main characters, right? You may not be given their names, but you certainly will be given information about what they're like as characters, right? And then there'll be some main points of the plot. What's going to happen over the course of the film? Is it a chase? Is it a fight? A journey back in time? Sucked into a video game? What is it, right? So I want you to go to week 4. There'll be more detailed instructions, and I have an example for you. Don't forget to make sure you give me a working link because I want to be able to look at the trailer myself. And then for our discussion board this week, we're going to do some virtual staffing and casting for our TV series project. You're the producer, so it's your job to find and hire people to handle some of the other basic tasks and roles, including the director, the scriptwriter, the camera work, the costumes, the makeup, the props, and then possible main actors. So go to week 4, look at the discussion board, and that's where we're going to talk about people that we think we should hire or try to hire for our project. All right. So thanks for your attention, and I will see you on the boards.